Welcome again. This is the second day. Today is today the 1st of April. Yeah, today is the 1st of April. A very significant day for so many stupid reasons. So let's carry on the conversation about it. And even yesterday when we were talking, we were trying to not really go the way a lot of our people on the left are going, which is basically think of it as just another coronavirus capitalism, and capitalism is going to use this opportunity to kind of grab more money, corporate plunder. They have a term called disaster capitalism. So this is going to be disaster capitalism. This is going to feed onto a more repressive surveillance state. This is going to be used in order for corporates to make more money, to destroy the health system. Basically, this period of disorientation under which the entire different countries are going through, the people are going through a disoriented phase, and it is precisely this time that the powers that be will ram through the kind of policies which otherwise they would not dare to ram through, because there would be a lot of resistance and a lot of opposition. So that is a very, very valid point. But we, in our conversations, are trying to not really go in that direction, and really trying to come back and say, okay, can we also talk about the very framework of science within which this disease is being understood, the framework of science from within which the coronavirus, to the extent that the coronavirus is a real thing, is being understood. And there, yesterday we highlighted how there is a long tradition of Marxist biology, dialectical biology, through which we can really try to formulate an alternative science to kind of look at the entire problem from a different perspective. So it's not just a question of how coronavirus is being used by, for example, Prime Minister Narendra Modi to further his own agenda. People are talking about the PM Cares fundraising, and why Prime Minister Modi is not doing it through the Prime Minister's Relief Fund. So all of that are very valid points. And in India, as you know, we are even talking about how the coronavirus issue will be used to communalize the country, polarize the country, and take it along very familiar Hindu-Muslim divides and all of that. So we are resisting that temptation of doing that kind of an external social critique, but really going into the science of it. So I think just to set the ball rolling again, I'll just read a small passage, a few lines from Levanthin, R.C. Levanthin's book, The Doctrine of DNA. I hope our viewers would love to, familiarize themselves with this. The Doctrine of DNA, Biology as Ideology. And Partho, and of course, you're very aware of Levanthin and Levin's you have worked with as in your capacity as a scientist. I'll just read this little passage just to set the tone, and then we can go further. R.C. Levanthin writes about the human genome sequencing, the entire molecular biology project. He says that the problem of the human genome sequencing project is that it also claims that in knowing the molecular configuration of our genes, we know everything that is worth knowing about us. It regards the gene as determining the individual, and the individual as determining society. It isolates an alteration in a so-called cancer gene as the cause of cancer, whereas that alteration in the gene may in turn have been caused by ingesting a pollutant, which in turn was produced by an industrial process, which in turn was the inevitable consequence of investing money at 6%. So he's being very satirical here. So basically, a so-called cancer gene is taken as the cause. So the cancer gene is, of course, one of the reasons why the cancer is happening, but that cannot be the cause. So the the is in italics here. He's put it in italics. So you cannot regard it as a kind of a cause. And somewhere else, Partho, he points out that there is this tendency to take the gene as providing some kind of a blueprint for a protein, and regard the gene as a master molecule, as though that gene can in itself produce proteins and the rest of the things. So there is this entire molecular biology, entire science, entire framework which privileges the gene in this particular way. So today, when we are talking coronavirus, at a methodological level, at the level of scientific method and approach, you have already highlighted some of it yesterday. So I was wondering if you want to take that further and add more to really tell us how we can look at this coronavirus at the level of the virus in a different way. For example, I'll just give you an example and the problem that I am facing, and maybe a lot of our viewers are facing the same problem who are not so adept in science. I read somewhere today that the coronavirus goes through the trachea inside, and then once it is in the alveoli, it attacks a particular cell called type 2 pneumocyte, right? And then the entire process begins. So when we as people who belong to the left and we are trying to really follow the science of it, we are stuck in points like this. You've told us yesterday about the difference between transcription and translation and all of that, but I think we really didn't cover the alveoli and what happens and how really a person dies, because it seems to me that there is some problem with the oxygen transfusion, which is blocked because something happens in the alveoli because of the coronavirus. So, Partho, please enlighten us.
Okay, so you have actually raised two different issues. The one issue is where you have talked about how Levins or Levontin had looked at the scientific enterprise in biology, where for a long time, I would say for 50 years or 60 years, the gene was privileged as the master molecule, and that gave rise to this, this entire thought which is called as genetic determinism. So where the gene determines everything. Okay, and the gene was sort of designated as the prime cause. Interestingly, the critiques which were raised about this thing from people like Levins, Levontin, and such, actually over the last 20 years or so, science have also shifted a lot from sort of privileging the gene as the master regulator or the master molecule to a scenario where understanding how the gene gets expressed, that is what we use the term expressed, which means that the gene actually gives rise to its effect, has become the central point of understanding in biology. Okay, and that is regulated by a variety of factors. It's not just the gene per se. Okay, so there has been a shift away from genetic determinism in science as such, in biology as such,
Okay.
which has very much taken now a central place in biology, and that has given rise to the field of epigenetics, the field of genetic regulation, and all these things. Maybe at some point in this conversation, I'll talk a little bit about my work, where we actually look at such processes.
So
Okay.
genetic regulation is different because I had heard from you about epigenetics. You have added genetic regulation also today.
Right. So it's all part of a bigger process called genetic regulation. Basically, it
Okay.
means that the gene, which all the genes together form what is called as the genotype. Okay. So if I take a person has A, B, C, D genes, then all that forms a genotype. But what that person is, or what a particular animal is called as a phenotype. And the genotype to phenotype transition, okay, involves regulation of the way in which the genes actually express themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, means that the information which is encoded in the genes, how it actually plays out in the real world, is called as a phenotype, and that is regulated
Okay.
by various factors. Okay,
Okay. The
so
phenotype has something to do with physiological, something more physiological
everything.
about the
So
phenotype.
it is physiology, it is behavior, everything involves phenotype. So how a person behaves also is a part of the phenotype of that person. Okay, so it is how the person's liver functions is also part of the phenotype of the person. How a person's lung function is part of the phenotype of the person. So the phenotype is the all the external manifestations which we see in any animal or any individual, any plant. Okay,
Yeah.
and this, at the basis of this is the genotype, but the genotype is not the only thing gives rise to the phenotype. There are various other factors which causes the genotype to get expressed in a particular way, which gives rise to the phenotype. Okay, so this genotype to phenotype, like the transition, if I call it in that way, is something which is central to biology. Okay, and which is very much part of biological research now. It is not something just what people like Levinson, Levantin say, but everybody realizes that now. And there things like epigenetics also come into play. All right, so we will come to that maybe as part of the discussion. Now, what is at the level of the human body is something I'll just say briefly. So yesterday I talked about the viral life cycle. Okay, I talked about how the virus enters into the cell. A virus entering into the cell involves the virus interacting with the cell. Okay, and then the viral RNA going inside the cell, and then the RNA getting translated to produce viral proteins, and the RNA getting copied to produce viral RNA. And then this how these proteins and RNA come together to form new viral particles, which then break out of the cell and infect other cell around. Okay, this is at the level of the viral life cycle. Now, what happens in the case of the human body is that the virus comes in, it comes into a respiratory system. Okay, it comes in through our mouth or nose or any such way in which we can inhale the virus actually. This virus is transmitted by droplets. Okay, droplets are basically small particles of fluid or water, which is produced when we talk, when we sneeze, when we cough. So if a time-lapse photo is taken of me at this point of time, you will see I am producing a cloud of these droplets. Okay, so anyone who comes into close contact with me at this point of time will inhale a part of those droplets. Okay, the virus is present within the droplets. If I am infected, the virus will be present in the droplets. Then the virus will enter into the respiratory tract as the person inhales the droplets. It will pass through the respiratory tract. The respiratory tract, or the which is called colloquially as a windpipe. Technically, it is called as a trachea. Okay, the trachea goes down our chest and then branches into what we call as bronchi, which then further branches into bronchioles, and these bronchioles enter into the lung. Okay, now within the lung, basically there are these bodies, okay, which just look like bunch of grapes. Okay, these are called as the alveoli. All right, the function which the alveoli does is that it creates a surface area on one side of which is the air which we breathe in, and the other side of it is our blood. Okay, and this of the alveoli forms the what we call as the gas exchange surface. This is the surface across which oxygen from the air goes into the blood and carbon dioxide from the blood comes out into the air, which then gets exhaled out. Okay, now this surface is composed of a single layer of cells, which is called type 2 pneumocytes. Okay, so the gas actually has to pass across these cells. The oxygen has to pass across these cells and carbon dioxide has to pass across these cells to come out. Okay, so the single layer of cells forms this gas exchange surface. All right, now the virus, once it comes into our trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, it finally comes into this alveoli. All right, now all these cells which we have on the surface of the cells are various proteins. Okay, these proteins, they are basically, you can think of them as again as sort of small machines which are sitting on the surface.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Now, one such protein on the surface of these cells is called as the ACE2. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is angiotensinogen converting enzyme 2. Okay. This is a protein which does some function in the cell, some normal function in the cell. But what every virus does, I mean, this is a virus starting from HIV to polio virus to dengue virus. Every particular virus selects a particular protein from the host cell as a receptor protein. Okay, how does the receptor protein work? So basically on the coronavirus surface also there are proteins. Okay, And you must have seen pictures of the coronavirus. It has this, proteins on its surface which gives it the appearance of a corona. All right.
Yeah.
This protein which sticks out on the surface is called as a spike protein. Now, the spike protein can actually bind with this ACE2 protein, ACE2 protein. Okay. So once they interact, okay, they bind with each other, the virus actually sticks to the surface of the cell, this pneumocyte cells.
Pneumocyte.
And then it will get engulfed inside the cell by a normal physiological process. So it will go inside the cell.
Yeah.
Once
Yeah.
inside the cell, it will do the processes which I described. The virus will start making copies of itself.
The
And once
pneumocyte cell is of course inside the alveoli, right?
it's on the surface of the alveoli.
Yeah, from the inside.
Yeah, from the inside. Yeah, exactly.
From the inside. Yeah.
Yeah. So once it goes, it sticks onto the surface of this new type 2 pneumocytes, gets engulfed, and there the virus will start producing copies of itself. Okay. And then this copies, the virus, which we call as a progeny virus, it will break the pneumocyte and come out.
Oh, that's right.
And will infect other surrounding pneumocytes.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we covered that a little bit yesterday, no? The
Right,
transcription
exactly.
and all that. Yeah, translation. Yeah.
So by doing this, the pneumocytes will get destroyed.
Okay. This is new. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So while it is killing, this will kill the pneumocytes, and as the pneumocytes will get killed, this gas exchange surface will get damaged.
That's right.
Now the oxygen just present in the air within the alveoli will not be able to pass into the bloodstream. Okay, and
into the bloodstream.
yeah, it will not be able to pass into the bloodstream, and this will cause the respiratory distress, which is the sign of the coronavirus infection. And slowly, as the oxygen will not be able to go into the bloodstream, this will cause the person to lose what we call as oxygen saturation. That means the person will not be able to take up oxygen from there, and will slowly, his organs will start getting damaged in absence of oxygen, and the person is finally going to die because of multi-organ failure. This is the entire pathology of the coronavirus.
That's right.
Okay, so at two levels it works. At one level, the viral life cycle works, and at the other level, the pathology works.
That's right.
Okay,
That's right.
and this is an interconnected process by which this.
I see. Okay, so but now in this framework, where can we start really making an alternative way of approaching this, or this is something which we have to accept? This explanation that you gave, is it uniform? Is it something which, no matter what approach you take, whether you take this Levantine approach or whether you take this dominant approach today, is this like canonical? Is this something that we must accept? Is that the case?
Yeah, see, one thing is that we should understand that at the basis of anything is the material basis of science.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the material basis on which any such like superstructure of thought or a critique or analysis has to stand.
Yeah.
This is something which happens at the material level.
Yeah.
All right, and then this is something which we should understand. So there is a problem on the left, which is actually now the right has taken it up. It is the problem of science denialism. Okay, a dialectical approach doesn't go through the process of science denialism.
That's true.
Okay, we have to first understand the science behind it, and then to understand how that science basically interplays or cross-talks with everything around it, which includes society, which includes economics, which includes the entire superstructure. But the science in some way has to be understood as the material basis for this reality, and we cannot deny, should not deny, because that will lead us to the trap of science denialism, which evolution denialism, climate denialism. This is all part of the right. Actually, the left should not go in that direction.
But what I felt was, is there a focus too much on the RNA as informational base within the coronavirus? is it that we are not looking more at the, I don't know, the overall structure of the coronavirus? Is the, are we, because the translation part, the replication part that you're talking about, which is what is really contained in the RNA of the coronavirus, which allows that, so it uses the host as a kind of a launching pad or something, or gets the energy from the host, from the human body in this case. So
Yeah.
is it that in the coronavirus, that beautiful picture a lot of people have drawn, so
Mhm.
one is the RNA there, but there are other component parts also of it, right?
Yeah.
Is it that
Yeah, but
some
see,
scientists would focus on the RNA more, and others would focus on the spike proteins or the other membranes or something that are going on there,
no,
right?
see, all these are components of the whole. Okay, each of
Yeah,
these components is important. All right, the
yeah,
RNA, the proteins which we call as the non-structural proteins, the proteins which we call as the structural proteins, all of these are part of the virus as a whole
yeah,
for it to function as a virus. Okay,
yeah,
the RNA plays an important role as the molecule which contains the information.
yeah.
Okay, it's required to produce all the other proteins. Okay,
Okay.
so
Uh-huh.
RNA, as I was describing, is an informational molecule.
Ah,
Okay, so it
yeah,
contains the information which is required to produce all the other proteins and for all the other proteins to function.
yeah,
In that, RNA is important.
yeah, yeah,
Now, from the RNA, there would be this information, as I said, would be transmitted in a way which is by this process of translation to
yeah,
produce the protein which is required for the functioning of the virus. So
yeah,
you can
yeah,
have them separately. The RNA is also important, the virus is also important, the proteins are also important.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And they
yeah.
have sort of, I would again say, a dialectical interaction among themselves, which gives
That's
rise to
right.
the virus as a whole,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
the virus functions.
I mean,
Okay.
couldn't there be something? So, if there is a medicine you are proposing, say, scientists are trying to discover medicine against coronavirus. So, one
Yeah.
maybe would be something which will block the RNA, the transmission of the information contained. The other might be to create the proteins which will create such an adverse conditions there that in spite of the RNA carrying that information, it won't be able to replicate. So
Yeah.
would the different approaches appear at this level, whether you work through attacking the information, the idea which is in the RNA, or the other material conditions that are there, which could be the proteins? Can we think along these lines?
So everything is tried. So the
uh,
all the drugs which are used as antivirals,
yeah,
okay,
uh,
targets these different components of the virus. Okay.
yeah,
For example, yesterday I told about this protein called the RDRP, the RNA dependent RNA polymerase, which copies the RNA. Okay.
RDR. Uh,
RDRP, RNA
uh,
dependent RNA polymerase, which
okay.
copies the RNA to produce the RNA copies.
Mm,
Now, the one of the drugs, okay, is targets this RDRP and this stops the copying of the RNA. For
okay.
example, the drug which has been so hugely successful in combating HIV, the AIDS,
Uh,
okay, a virus, that is a drug which stops the RDRP. Okay, it prevents the
oh,
RNA from
okay.
getting copied.
Uh,
Okay.
uh,
On the other hand, there can be a
what is
drug
this?
which
What is this drug called? The HIV drug you said?
it is called as AZT.
Is
AZT.
okay. Uh,
Okay. So this
mm,
is successful in stopping the HIV RNA from getting copied. All right.
okay.
Now, in the other case, you also have drugs. For example, the drug which is used against influenza virus, which is now being used for this virus also, that is targeted against another protein which is called as a protease.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so that actually stops the proteins from getting produced.
Okay.
Okay,
Sorry,
so
that's also in HIV?
no, that is in influenza virus. That is now being tried out in this one also in coronavirus also.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so there are various types of treatments. So currently for the coronavirus, the type of treatments which are being tried out,
Mm.
okay, targets this multiple types of proteins in the coronavirus. None of
Okay.
them directly target the RNA. All of them target different proteins. Okay.
I see. I see. I see. I see. Okay.
All right. Or you must have heard about this drug which is called as hydroxychloroquine, which
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
which was being told that this is being used
yeah,
as something in the coronavirus. What that
yeah.
does is basically, as I said, that the coronavirus enters into the cell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it enters into a cell in the form of a pocket. Okay. And inside the pocket, the acidity of the pocket is
Uh,
important to allow the viral proteins to function. Now,
mm.
hydroxychloroquine goes and changes the acidity of this pocket
Oh, I see, I see, I see.
and can prevent the virus from actually, the viral
Uh,
proteins actually function.
and this
So,
pocket is inside which cell? This
a
pocket?
pneumocyte, this pneumocyte.
Oh, pneumocyte. Okay, the type pneumocyte. Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So the virus goes into this thing is called technically as an endosome. Okay. So the endosome has a particular acidity. This acidity can be changed with this thing with hydroxychloroquine, and this can affect again the replication of the virus. So these
Okay,
are all different strategies. So there is nothing like a single strategy which will work against a virus.
okay, okay.
Most cases, what is tried is a combination of such drugs.
Okay, okay.
Okay. So
Uh,
all
uh,
all this is being tried against the coronavirus. Even so currently like the drugs which are being used. One is this RNA polymerase, as I said. So this drug is called as remdesivir. So this is what is being used. Hydroxychloroquine, as I said, is being used to reduce the acidity in these endosomes.
yeah.
Okay. And then there are these two drugs which were targeted against the protease, as I said, lopinavir and ritonavir. This has been
Uh,
tried against the protease.
uh,
And then there is also drugs which affects this ACE2, this
that one,
receptor.
yeah, that one, yeah. Which
Yeah,
attracts the RNA, yeah,
right. Yeah. So
yeah.
this is called as camostat. This drug. This is also being tried out.
Amostat. Okay.
Camostat. And then there is a drug which is being used, which was actually developed by scientists in Cuba, actually
Oh,
interferon beta.
wonderful. Finally, we are into Cuba. Yeah.
That is
I'm
also being
waiting for
used.
this moment.
Uh, interferon beta, but interferon beta, this is interferon beta 2, this is not directly targeting the virus. What it does,
Uh,
basically, it regulates the body's response to the virus.
okay. Well, that looks like a different approach now, a different methodology.
Yeah, so that is also there, but we do not know how well this will function against this particular virus. So
Mm.
it's a non-specific antiviral, we tell.
I love that term, non-specific. It takes us out of the gene now, finally. You know?
No, it also affects genes, but it affects genes in the human body, not
Okay,
not the viral genes.
okay, okay, okay.
So it also affects genes, but
Uh,
it affects the human body's immune system.
I see, I see, I see.
Okay?
So
But
non-specific. Okay. So
yeah,
what would be how is it different from the specific? What does the specific do? I mean, it will only target
the,
specific
this
kind of
particular virus,
micro level
this
things.
particular virus, for example,
Mm.
so a specific antiviral will specifically target a virus, whereas a
Uh,
non-specific antiviral will sort of see our body also has antiviral defenses. So a
uh,
non-specific antiviral will go and work with this body's non-specific antiviral defenses, so which will start getting activated whenever a virus infects. So interferons are part of this our antiviral defense system.
okay, okay. I see, I see, I see, I see, I see.
Okay, so
Uh,
interferons will specifically target the virus. So the
uh,
idea is that you use drugs which will
uh.
target both the virus and the host.
And the host. I see, I
Okay,
see, I see.
so
So the
together,
Cuba. So tell us more about the Cuba medicine. So it will strengthen the
yeah,
immune system of the host. That's how it works, rather than targeting the
it really,
virus.
yeah, it doesn't really strengthen the immune system. What it does, it mounts an immune response. So basically, something like it is the antiviral defense. Our body has an immune system. And the
Uh,
immune system is again two parts of the immune system. One is called the innate immunity, the other is called the adaptive immunity. The
okay.
innate immunity is our body's first line of defense against any infection.
That's right. Yeah,
Okay?
yeah, yeah.
So whenever we get infected by any virus or any bacteria or any type of pathogenic organism, some cells in our body gets activated.
Yeah.
Okay, and then they produce substances which specifically now activate cells which goes and kills that bacteria or viruses. Okay. Now one of the substances is this interferon. So normally our body's own cells produce it. All right. And these cells go and activate what the cells which we call as natural killer cells, which go and kill the viruses.
Yeah.
Now, if interferon is given from outside to our body also, this will also activate our innate immune system. So this thing was developed by one of this thing was developed by Cuban scientists, interferon beta 2, which if given to our body will activate our natural killer cells, which can then go and kill the virus.
Okay. How old is this interferon medicine?
Yeah, this is from the 1970s actually.
From back then? Okay.
Yeah.
I was
It was
under the impression that this is all microbiology and biotechnology, and it could not have been so developed back then, not just in Cuba, but also in other countries, because I thought it was...
Cuba developed a very strong biotechnology research and production system. So they have a number of very good biotechnology products. So one of this is interferon beta 2.
So in the 1970s, that's like
that's when they started this research project. They started producing this finally at commercial scale in 1980s.
Okay. And this kind of research in Cuba, which gave us interferon, that doesn't have anything to do with the Human Genome Project and the kind of thing that Levantine is critiquing, right?
It is also part of the same thing, because the interferon is also produced by some gene in our body. So what the Cubans did, they could take the gene from the human body, from human cells, and put it in bacteria and produce this protein interferon beta in bacteria in large quantities.
Okay. I see.
And then they could isolate and purify this. This is also protein, and then then it can be injected into humans again. So this also comes from a human gene.
I see. So this interferon has already been used then for other ailments.
It is used quite widely as an antiviral drug, as a non-specific antiviral drug.
So even in like the kind of viral fever that we get, the ordinary viral fever, this can be used, you mean?
It is not required. It is see, this also has this our innate immune system is actually a double-edged sword. Okay, so it is our primary protective response to any infection or injury, because it kills this infectious pathogens. But if it gets too strong, then it kills our own tissues also. So this is also a dialectical system.
Okay. Yeah. I see.
So
actually, this reminds me, when I was just surfing the net, I found one explanation saying that one of the things that makes coronavirus so lethal is that the coronavirus is able to activate our immune system, which in turn does further damage to our body, apparently.
Right. Yeah. This is called as a cytokine storm. That is what it is called technically. So it creates cytokine.
Okay. Cytokine. Yeah.
It's called
something
a cytokine.
Something that like kinetic energy or something. Cytokine.
Cytokines were originally called in that way because they're called cytokinesis. Cytokinesis means movement of cells. So basically, when a virus infects a certain part of the body, cells from the blood move out and go to that site of infection. So this process is called cytokinesis. Right?
I see.
And
so what does the coronavirus do? That way it attracts all the cells and starts infecting all of that?
Right, yeah. To come and target and attack that cell which is getting infected.
My God. This is like using some guerrilla warfare, If you are weak, you get the enemy out of their den and then you kill them.
Right, yeah. So this keeps happening all the time. So now, but the thing is that if you give something like interferon beta, this will activate the cytokine storm in some way. But if it becomes very strong, becomes very uncontrolled, then it can damage the body itself. Therefore, it has to be given very carefully. It should not be given in, our daily influenza or things like that,
Okay,
because then
okay.
it can cause more harm than good.
I see, I see, I see. So in this, now that we have come this far, we cannot not hear from you on this medicine called paracetamol.
Okay.
What is this thing called paracetamol? Because you have mentioned interferon. Is it something like this, like interferon, or it is? To me, it feels like it's the capitalist pharmaceutical industry's embodiment, the paracetamol. It's like true evil, the
Not really.
paracetamol.
See, this is just the opposite of interferon in some way.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I expected.
no, but it also has this function. So, paracetamol belongs to a group of drugs which are called as non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So,
Okay.
this entire process which a infection causes is called as inflammation. Okay, so our body's defense system gets activated, and
Uh,
that causes this effects which we see. This was actually described by a Greek, physician 2000 years ago called
uh,
Galen. Okay,
uh,
so inflammation involves four different things. So
uh.
in Greek they are calor, dolor, rubor, and tumor.
Oh,
Okay,
oh, tumor?
tumor
Tumor.
means swelling,
Okay.
swelling. So
Oh,
if there is any
swelling.
inflammation,
Okay, okay,
there's
swelling. Yeah.
swelling. Okay, dolor means pain,
Uh,
rubor means redness, and
uh,
calor means increased temperature, so
uh,
heat.
uh,
Okay, so these are all manifestation of inflammation. All right.
yeah.
Now, drugs like paracetamol reduce inflammation.
Okay.
So they bring down this effect. All right, like, and therefore it is used in reducing fever, because fever is a result of inflammation. So that's why
Uh,
paracetamol belongs to this group of drugs called as non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. All
okay,
right,
okay.
so these are drugs which reduces inflammation.
Uh,
In
I
some way,
see,
we
I
call
see.
it colloquially as a painkiller also, because pain is also a part of inflammation. The paracetamol also reduces pain.
Okay, 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 okay. I'm tempted to ask you a more basic question. Where is this inflammation? What is inflamed?
So inflamed is basically, as I said, so as soon, for example, when the coronavirus infects the pneumocytes,
Yeah.
okay, it is causing inflammation. So basically, what is happening? There are cells which are coming from around and trying to kill that cell which the virus has infected. Okay. This process gives rise to this thing which is because over there now there would be changes which is going to cause all these things. It would generate heat, it would produce pain, it would cause swelling, okay, it would cause water accumulation. All these things together form this process. Was named inflammation because there was production of heat during the process. So people thought that there was a flame burning in the body.
Okay, okay.
So
I see, I
that
see.
is how the body stuff. Okay,
Okay, okay, okay, okay.
so
Yeah,
things like interferons increase the inflammation, whereas things like
okay.
paracetamol brings down inflammation. Okay, and as I
Oh,
said just now, the inflammation is a double-edged sword. So it can be helpful for the body, but if it
hmm.
becomes too high, then it can be harmful for the body also.
That's right, that's right. Okay, okay, okay. Wow, fantastic, Partho. And I'm so happy that we got the Cuba thing in here,
Yeah.
because there was this picture that was circulating of these Cuban doctors getting off a aeroplane in Italy,
Italy,
and
absolutely.
it
Yeah.
was an Italian airport, and all the people were there, the fellow passengers or onlookers inside the airport, and they were like all
Right.
applauding. And of course, in India,
Right.
people on the left were very promptly, they shared the clapping which
Yeah.
happened with the
Yeah.
lockdown announcement by Modi, and the clapping for the Cuban doctors there. And they were saying, okay, this is a different kind of clap. There were a lot of memes around that. So, are you following anything? Do we know if the Cuban doctors who came to Italy, have been successful or something? Do we have any news about that?
Cuba has this long history of sending doctors to
Yeah,
all places where they are required.
yeah,
So that is a very well known aspect of Cuba. What is not
yeah.
so well known is this wonderful Cuban research in molecular biology and biotechnology. You see, the Cubans have done something which is very rare. So, and I would say the left should learn from it.
Mm.
Cubans didn't completely deny or throw away the science as capitalist science, or
Yeah,
as capitalist biology. They took the same science and developed it with a pro-people approach.
that's right. That's right.
Okay,
That's right.
so
Yeah.
I think that should be the approach of the left rather than, like denying the science as such as capitalist science. The
That's
question
right.
is,
That's right. That's right. I think it's just a left, it's just lazy, They don't want to really get into the details of anything because this needs a lot of hard work to really go and
absolutely,
investigate. Investigation, observation, these things take time.
and
If
things
you
which
are
are
used to this
actually
lazy, idle critique of everything around and just feel nice about yourself, then.
And this was absolutely the basis of Marxism. Means we
Yeah,
can see Engels writing in the 19th century a book like the Origin of Private Property, the Family and the State, which
yeah,
is an absolute scientific treatise.
that's
Okay,
right.
it
That's right.
looks at anthropological data which was present at that time and comes up with a socioeconomic
Yeah,
construct out of that
yeah,
anthropological data. So
yeah.
this is actual Marxist approach. Marxist approach is not science denialism or
That's
like
right. That's right.
or like
No,
rejecting
and
any.
then I thought you were going to mention the dialectics of nature by Engels.
Absolutely.
I mean,
So
there might have been a lot of problems. I mean, science might have moved on. It might be outmoded. But I think the basic intention, the basic direction
yeah,
to which Engels was pointing out, I think we got to engage with it. I mean, that doesn't mean you wholesale accept it.
and
But I
that
think,
Marx and Engels wanted to call their socialism as scientific socialism,
yeah,
not because they were just happy to use the word scientific or it
yeah,
had any sort of like romantic feeling, but
yeah,
basically they were telling that we are having a socialism which is based on objective
yeah.
facts.
That's
It
right.
is
That's and
not
also and yeah, and also
based
Partho,
on what people are thinking ideally.
Yeah, and also Partho, when today we only do an external social critique of the initiatives against coronavirus taken by the capitalist countries and the capitalist
Yeah.
states and all these big corporate pharmaceutical firms, when we do only an external critique and we do not really suggest that, okay, what is then the way to counteract
Yeah.
coronavirus? If we are
Yeah.
unhappy with the system that is given to us
Yeah.
in the name of fighting coronavirus, then we
Yeah.
should also not give up the fact that we can also suggest an alternative. I think the
Absolutely.
left
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
given up alternative politics in this larger sense
Yeah.
that they
Absolutely.
think that they will just sit on the sidelines and only
Yeah.
critique and find out some mistakes. Oh, look, they should have given more money for the poor. They did not give. They
Yeah.
should have not given this contract to pharmaceutical sector, but they have given. So this kind of an external critique from a position of personal comfort
Yeah.
where you
Absolutely.
are very secure and you are not really engaging with the problem at hand. Why should only pro-capitalist or whatever bourgeois doctors only, why should they only engage? What about our doctors? What about people like you? What about other people who are within the left movement but who might be doctors and who are scientists? Let us formulate an alternative framework to
Yeah.
understand this
Absolutely.
problem, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And the
uh,
Cubans did exactly that in the
exactly.
1970s when they were faced with this blockade.
Yeah,
They really understood that they have to develop science on their independently on their island.
that's
Okay,
right.
and therefore they did not reject the science as such.
Yeah,
They took the
yeah,
science,
yeah,
which science being developed internationally,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then they suited it for their own purpose and for
That's
the
right.
good of their own people. And
Yeah,
today, the entire world they are giving to. So
yeah.
completely rejecting science or scientific research as something as a product of capitalism is something I think is very non-dialectical. So we should understand
Absolutely,
the science for
absolutely.
what it is. We should understand the dialectical relationship which this science has with society, and then we
Yeah,
should try to develop it with a pro-people approach.
exactly, exactly, exactly. Great,
So,
fantastic. So, Partho, on that note, we will end this part of the discussion and we will talk more on the other side.
okay,
Thank you
thank
so much.
you. Thank you. Yeah.